The development undertaken by Ferrari during the 2024 Formula One Championship is fundamentally different from that of the previous season. In 2023, the Maranello team's engineers and technicians quickly acknowledged the car's issues, implementing corrective measures during the season to salvage a flawed project while exploring a new direction for the following year. Thus, the SF-24 was designed based on a new concept, more driver-friendly and focused on race performance rather than the one-lap pace in the qualifying session. The development of the 2024 car aims to refine a young and technically raw project, making the SF-24 increasingly complete and competitive, albeit with some setbacks along the way. Let's take a look at the main aerodynamic updates developed in Maranello during the year. In the early races of the 2024 Formula One season, Ferrari limited itself to circuit-specific adaptations, while preparing the first major aerodynamic update package for spring. In the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, a medium-downforce rear wing debuted, accompanied by a single profile beam wing that appeared only during the third free practice session. In the Australian Grand Prix, minor tweaks were made, such as the addition of 2 flaps on the sides of the rear wing supports. Finally, in Japan, further adaptations were introduced for the beam wing and rear wing, along with new fairings on the rear suspension arms to better manage airflow around the gearbox and diffuser. After a brief shakedown at the Fiorano circuit, the first major aerodynamic upgrade package for the SF-24 debuted in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix weekend. A new floor design was introduced with visible changes to the side edges. The bodywork was revised, featuring inverted side air intakes and deeper undercut sections under the side pods to improve airflow toward the rear and increase local pressure, shielding the floor from turbulence. The cooling system was also marked by key changes, with a new layout for the outlets on the engine cover and the sealing of the bypass duct exit behind the halo mounts. Additional updates included new fairings for the rear suspension arms and tweaks to the front wing flaps. Ferrari returned to victory on the streets of Monte Carlo in the Monaco Grand Prix, with Charles Leclerc celebrating a historic home Grand Prix win. The result was aided by typical Monaco-specific adaptations, such as a high-downforce rear wing and similarly loaded beam wing. Less than a month after the Imola package, the second evolutionary step for the SF-24 arrived with high hopes in the Spanish Grand Prix. A new floor design debuted, focusing on the diffuser and underside, with changes concealed externally. Further sculpting was done under the side pods, along with refinements to the aerodynamic appendages around the halo. A new high-downforce package, including a rear wing and beam wing, also debuted. Overall, the package increased aerodynamic downforce but exacerbated the bouncing and porpoising issues that had persisted since the start of the year. Ferrari collected only 22 points to add to the constructors' standing at the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain, despite the fact that the SF-24 single-seater arrived at Montmello with a significant aerodynamic update package changing the underbody, side pods, diffuser, and rear wing. However, these changes caused many issues over the Barcelona weekend, with Ferrari's updates needing careful analysis in order to extract their potential. The approximately 4-kilometer Catalan track has long been a decisive and significant venue for cars both from a mechanically and aerodynamically point of view. The long, high-speed corners allow for an evaluation of the Maranello team's factory work. After the Imola weekend with the debut of the updated SF-24 version in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Ferrari's expectations soared, and the updates initially planned for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone elevated them even further. Returning to the Spanish Grand Prix, Ferrari struggled in the corners due to the unexpected return of bouncing. This phenomenon was not seen in any of the SF-24 cars from Bahrain to Canada, and suddenly the problem reappeared in Barcelona. The most similar track in terms of characteristics is Suzuka, where Ferrari managed to maintain a stable platform without bouncing during the snake section. Pushing the SF-24 to its limits might have reached the upper threshold of rigidity currently available on the car. This rigidity does not involve the rotary dampers, but the third mechanical element. This element manages the role and behavior of the car during direction changes where maintaining a parallel position to the ground is crucial. This behavior is even more critical for the current generation of Formula One cars, where a millimeter imbalance between the right and left sides negates the aerodynamic seal of the underbody, triggering bouncing. With the introduction of the second major package in Barcelona, the SF-24 lost its balance and friendly drivability, and Ferrari therefore decided to conduct comparative tests with the old specification in Austria and England, seeking to address the issues through setup adjustments. In the British Grand Prix, harmful bouncing forces engineers to have a smaller setup window and to make compromises, including raising the car off the ground, as in Spain. Finally, at the Hungaroring circuit, a corrected version of the new floor debuted, keeping bouncing within acceptable limits. To make things worse, the SF-24 now struggled in the high-speed corners. Inevitably, these issues were exposed at a circuit like Spielberg's. As expected, Ferrari introduced the first adaptations for low-downforce tracks during the second half of the season in Belgium at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. The front wing featured less aggressive flaps, while a new single-profile beam wing appeared at the rear. The most significant update was the low-downforce rear wing, which reappeared at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The home race marked the debut of solutions to the bouncing issues amplified by the Barcelona Aerodynamic package. Key updates were made beneath the floor, with visible changes to the outer edge suggesting evolution rather than revolution of the previous design. A new diffuser with a keel at the end of the central ramp was also introduced, along with tweaks to the bodywork. Ferrari celebrated another victory with Charles Leclerc, aided by a low-downforce package that included a rear wing, beam wing, and front wing flaps. At the night race, Ferrari introduced a new front wing initially scheduled for the United States Grand Prix in Austin a month later. The wing featured significant changes to airflow distribution around the suspension arms and floor, with more loaded profiles in the central section compared to the edges. Notable work was also done on the junction between the flaps and the end plate, correcting vortex generation in this area to counteract turbulence from the front wheels. The new wing from Singapore hinted at a more substantial package in Texas, but expectations were unmet. Ferrari instead focused on improving the front wing's flexibility, considering the FIA's decision not to modify deformation tests before the year's end. Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur stated after the victorious Austin weekend that the Maranello team does bring updates even if they are not announced, emphasizing that only changes to external shapes are officially declared. The comments of the French manager highlight the fact that the updates which can be directly seen on the car represent only a fraction of the year's overall development. In the Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend, the Ferrari engineers and technicians conducted initial tests with an eye toward 2025. During the first free practice session in Nevada, Carlos Sainz's SF-24 car was equipped with a modified floor to verify wind tunnel correlation following recent upgrades to Maranello's infrastructure. Ferrari aimed to gather data on floor behavior at minimal ground clearance near track surface contact. This floor was also used in Qatar and during Abu Dhabi's Friday and test sessions. Described by Charles Leclerc as a different approach, the new specification aims to address chronic instability in long corners, an issue Ferrari plans to eliminate with its first car for Lewis Hamilton.